to give you a little bit of background right at the very beginning. In 2001, they passed No Child Left Behind, and as a result of that, we had AYP results, which is Adequate Yearly Progress. And those reports were published every year in about August, and they indicated whether the school was meeting those federal benchmarks for achievement that they set up. And the reports looked like this. They had 10 subgroups, whole school and all that, language arts and math, and then yeses and nos that indicated whether each group was achieving at the benchmark cut score that the federal government established. And every 2 years those benchmark cut scores go up and incrementally until 2014 when the benchmark's 100% and all students are proficient. The key factor of the old system is a yes and a no, whether they were meeting those criteria or not. Now the new system doesn't have yeses and nos, and that makes it, in some ways that's better, but in some other ways it makes it a little bit more challenging to understand. The new system is based on points, and there's a point structure that for our elementary and junior high schools looks like this, with 300 achievement points and 300 growth points. We're not going to worry too much about the bottom level. That's stuff that schools can use as they look really in depth at programs and stuff. But bottom line is there's achievement points and there's growth points, and together they come up with this overall score for Ucas, which is the Utah Comprehensive Accountability System. For high schools, graduation is a big part of achievement. But for our elementary and our junior high schools, achievement is based on proficiency, just like it used to be with AYP. What percent of our students are scoring at that proficiency cut score? In language, in math, and in science. And the DWA, that's a writing assessment that's given in 5th and 8th grade. And so if I'm a school and I have 85% proficient in language arts, then I'm going to get 85% of these 86 points. And then I'm going to do the same thing in math and the same thing in science and the same thing for my writing assessment, and I'm going to add all those points up, and it's going to give me a score out of 300 for achievement. In a high school it's a little different because they don't give the writing assessment, and instead they have graduation, which counts. And graduation is is weighted very heavily in our high schools because it's worth half of the total achievement points. Now the growth measure is, the state uses a measure called the Student Growth Percentile. And it's essentially a measure that takes me as a student and it matches me with a group of similarly achieving peers. And then it looks how we did this year on the test scores. And if I outpaced most of my peers, then that's represented by growth. And if my peers outpaced me, then that's like regression or reverse growth. And so a visualization of this would this is a little bit oversimplified, but if this represents last year's scores and this represents this year's scores.
For the same student?
For the same student, yep. So I am a student who got a 165, then it's going to take this whole surface and it's going to cut that. So everybody in this red surface right here is students who are academically alike me. They're the same type of students academically based on test scores. And let's just say I got a 170 this year. I'm going to kind of track that up, and if that's better than 75% of my peers, then I get a 75 growth score. Each student gets a growth score in the whole school. And then I'm going to take the median growth. So here's the lowest growth and here's the highest growth. I'm going to take the middle growth score in my school, and that's my school growth score. And that school growth score will determine how many points out of 300 I get. Everybody gets a growth score in language, in math, and in science. So bottom line, I have achievement that's based on proficiency on the end of level tests. That's what that's familiar to us. In high schools, it's based on graduation and achievement on those end of level tests. Then I have a growth measure that is how well students are doing relative to a group of students that looked like them last year academically. The state is going to put all of the Ucas reports online. And so the way they access these, the way the communities can access these, is they go to schools.utah.gov, which will look like this, and then they click on the PSD Gateway link. Then it'll bring up a screen that looks like this, and they click on Ucas report down at the bottom right, and then they find their school, and then they hit go, and it'll bring up a school report. What you're going to see is a report that looks like this, that tells me how many points I got for my whole school in growth, how many points I got for my below proficient in growth, add those up for my total growth, how many points I got for achievement, add those up for my total points. And at the top, they're going to see that 451 indicator by a dark colored arrow, and then the light colored arrow represents the statewide average. And so you're looking at a school here that is whose total score was slightly above state average. In our district, we have schools that are across the board. We have high achieving schools that are high growth. We have high achieving schools that have moderate growth. We have low achieving schools that are high growth, and we have lower achieving schools that have moderate growth. So this system in a lot of ways is way better than AYP because it helps the schools to tell their story to the community. What's really going on in this school? Maybe we're a highly impacted school. We have a lot of students who are at risk for low achievement. Some of these risk factors that they walk in the door with. And this growth indicator tells us what we can do with that. One of the big messages that we want to go out to our community is that this system is better than AYP. But it's not perfect. There are still some circumstances and some rules and some procedures associated with this that may not accurately portray everything that a school does. This is an indicator of school's success. It's not the indicator of school success. You can go into a school and you can walk past a classroom and you can see a teacher engaging in what school success is all about. And that activity that the teacher's doing may never even show up on these scores. But that's good teaching, and so that's good for kids, and that's what we do.